Yo, what is up, guys? Will here with Canyon from Fantasy Basketball Flock, and we are talking trade deadline winners, players who were positively impacted from a fantasy perspective from some of the massive trades that went down this trade deadline. Man, crazy trades. I love trade deadline time. The trade deadline day itself was pretty crazy. So we'll talk through some of the big moves. Had some pretty big name players moving. It wasn't just, deep guys and open opportunities. A lot of these are strong, solid, rostered in most leagues players we'll talk about, and some of them are fringe guys who got a big bump. So we'll talk about those. Before we get into that, though, if you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and if you are not on Underdog Fantasy, link in the description, use code Canyon to sign up. They'll give you a 100% deposit match up to $100. Player props for NBA, got the All-Star game coming up, obviously a bunch of different sports as well. If you're interested in other sports not in the NBA, whatever, do your thing. But let's get right into it. First up here, want to talk about a pair of players, and it's two of the guys who went over to the Nets. The Mikal Bridges trade and Spencer Dinwiddie being moved to the Nets. Obviously, things got opened up for the Nets. You removed Kyrie Irving, you removed Kevin Durant. And honestly, I know a lot of people look at the Nets and, look at these two guys, maybe as it not impacting them much. And I do think that it's a really positive thing for both of these guys. I know Mikal Bridges had a really strong stretch. So talking about him specifically, a lot of that was without Devin Booker, though. So you got to remember, Book just came back. So if you're just evaluating based off of current situation and what could have been, Bridges was going to see some regression from his scoring that he had, obviously. And then obviously Kevin Durant there. But, we won't get into the weird scenarios with that. So Bridges on the Nets, I don't think he's going to be able to replicate the scoring he had, but he's going to have some nights where he does. I think the thing with this Nets team is they are pretty, I don't want to say super deep, but the starting roster is decent. I know a lot of people think that they're in this massive rebuild, but I think they're a team that can compete. And obviously, just won their first game with some of these guys. Bridges didn't even play in that one. So I think they've got no superstar, but they have players who can give you superstar performances. Bridges, I think, is one of those guys who's obviously going to give you, strong defensive stats. He's going to, can give you pretty strong scoring, decent rebounding numbers as well. And another guy here who can give you superstar performances is Spencer Dinwiddie. We've seen him in spurts without Luka give really, really strong scoring. He's a strong scorer. So I think he's going to have a similar role and opportunity for this Nets team. And, we saw it with the strong game in his first game with the Nets. And two, there's some other guys for the Nets who, just naturally are going to get a boost when you remove Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And we've already seen, guys like Cam Thomas have monster games. Had another strong, solid game as well. So I think the Nets feel like this team that, honestly, a lot of these guys just get a natural bump just because there's opportunity. The ball isn't always going to be in KD and Kyrie's hands. So I think these are two guys specifically who I do think get a nice consistency bump.
Definitely. And from one team that got a haul of first to another team that had a haul of first round picks, it's Utah Jazz with Colin Sexton. They move on from Conley, leaving Sexton as their clear best second guard, really. 37 minutes tonight with 22, 5, and 6 without Clarkson. But I think they can both thrive, even with Clarkson back in the rotation. Yes, I know Russell Westbrook got traded there, but I think it's very likely that he doesn't remain in Utah. There's already murmurs of him moving on. He's been in talks with his agent. A lot of teams are kind of coveting him, believe it or not. So I think it's pretty likely that we see him move on. But even if he does stay, I still think that Sexton gets a good bump and is a winner from this trade deadline. When he was given the minutes early on in this season, he became super valuable and a guy that people raved about from the preseason. He started becoming that guy. He got flashes of okay, Sexton is finally that guy that we spent draft capital on in the draft time for fantasy basketball, and I think now is kind of Sexton's time to rise and do really well. Like I said, in the night of this recording, he had a very fantastic game. Obviously, no Clarkson, but I think this is a guy that can get a lot of shots up. Obviously, he's a shooter, he's a scorer, but he's got some solid peripherals as well. But with Conley leaving, there's a lot of minutes in the guard arena that need to be filled in, and the Jazz aren't super deep at guard other than Westbrook and whatever happens there. Again, even if Westbrook starts, plays, comes off the bench, I think Sexton is still going to be a guy that's going to benefit a lot from Conley leaving and them needing to kind of fill in a point guard / shooting guard role.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing with Sexton, he's shown spurts of, old Cav Sexton this season. And obviously it's just been the consistency with minutes when, you're playing a guy like Conley and Clarkson for strong starter minutes. And Sexton's really only getting his, 18 to 22 rotational. But if that's consistently, pushing 30s and he's playing strong minutes, I really like Sexton a lot. Next up here, it's a group, and I do want to say this one they just have to be a winner based off of what happens, but it's really a shrug, honestly, just with the way this team operates. But it's the Houston Rockets, and specifically their young guys. There's guys we like a lot, specifically guys like Eason, who I think could have, really, really strong NBA and fantasy performances if given strong minutes, but that's not happening tonight. It was the first game without Eric Gordon, and Easton played 19 minutes again, kind of what we've seen. So the thing with that, it's Eric Gordon. He was 34, playing 30 minutes on a super young Rockets team, and those minutes, obviously, they're able to be spread out. Now, I don't want to confidently and firmly say, we don't fully understand the way coaches operate. Their minds are an enigma sometimes, and the Rockets definitely fall in that category. A lot of times the rotations do not make sense to me. So I do want to say I don't think that these guys are necessarily must-adds, spend all your waiver fab, get them on your roster. But would not surprise me at all if we start seeing, if we do see consistent minutes, which feels like anybody's best guess, if that actually is going to happen. But if we did, I do think we'd get some strong performances from some of these guys like Eason, who I do like a lot. But it's one of those I have to put on here because they are a winner, but it's hard to pin down exactly what it's going to look like.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are at least keep your eye on, right? There's going to be a lot of these guys, these names brought up that are probably available on your waiver wire. We're not saying go spend all your fab on him, like you said just now, but definitely keep your eye on something to notify you about. But next up here, we've got Torrey Craig for the Phoenix Suns. The Suns lost Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, Dario Saric. That's right, they lost Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, Dario Saric. They gave up all of their 3-and-D guys. Obviously, they got Kevin Durant, but every rotational 3/4, 3-and-D guy they have on the wing is gone, and we have Torrey Craig left. Now, I know Torrey Craig's not this, bona fide stud that's going to come in and give you 20 on any given night, even with KD out, but he's an absolute winner when it comes to the minutes and the situation. And when you're looking at waiver wires, this is exactly what you want. He showed flashes in the playoffs, not only for the Suns in the previous years, but for the Bucks as well when it mattered. And now he's going to be called upon quite a bit more. He's a great waiver guy to keep an eye on. This is a guy that can obviously hit the 3-ball very well. Like I said, he's a 3-and-D guy. He's kind of just like another one of these wings like Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, more comparable probably to like a Jay Crowder. But this is a guy that can be a beneficiary of the moment heavily just because they lost 4 3-and-D guys and they have one guy left besides KD. KD's going to need a break sometime. I know he's a stud, but when he comes out, Torrey Craig comes in. This is a guy that can easily play 20-plus minutes in the rotation for the Suns, or even more just because of their lack of depth and everything they gave up to get this all-star in Kevin Durant. But Torrey Craig, threes, defense, rebounds, definitely rebounds, is a guy that's going to benefit a lot from minutes and situation.
Definitely. And next up, I want to get right into it. Mark Williams, a big trade deadline winner. I feel like I want special music to be playing or something right now. We've been talking about Mark Williams as a waiver wire guy to keep your eye on, specifically heading into trade deadline time. I know Plumlee, I think he was the thumbnail of one of our videos. He was a popular player to be moved just with the way, the Hornets are at, obviously, and the way Plumlee's playing right now, expiring contract as well. But yeah, Mark Williams, just really, really strong. It's obviously a clear ad. He had tonight played 31 minutes, had 11, 12, and 2 with a block. His per 30-minute stats this season are, right around 14 points, 11 boards, and 2 blocks. That's just really strong. And for a rookie as well. So it's for him to have the opportunity to immediately step into potentially playing, maybe even 30 minutes a night like we saw tonight would be amazing. Nick Richards tonight, I believe, only played 17 minutes. So I know some people, I think he's a deep league, keep your eye on, but obviously Mark Williams is the big winner here. The opportunity there's just no denying. And, I feel like I'm going to say that he's going to play 18 minutes next game, but really that would just be insane with the way the Hornets roster is right now. And Mark Williams has played well enough, I think, to deserve the opportunity with where the Hornets roster is at to play closer to 30 minutes. So he's a guy who we talked about as a luxury stash and keep your eye on. The time has come. Add Mark Williams if he's available in your leagues, because I know 11 and 12 might not look crazy. That's pretty strong, just picked up from the waiver wire. And he's a guy who can just, super strong rebounding numbers, and, his permanent rebounding numbers are really, really strong. And then just randomly crazy blocks games. Like I talked about, per 30 minute stats, he's averaging 2 blocks a game. So definitely a pickup. And then last year, another guy I want to talk about and just mention is James Wiseman. And this is kind of a weird situation with the deal. Obviously, he's going to the Pistons, a part of that Saddiq Bey trade. But there's some halt on that with the, Gary Payton and that injury and, clearing the physical and everything. But the thing with James Wiseman is he's just naturally a winner because of the situation he was in Golden State. They just weren't giving him the minutes. Obviously, pretty raw. Has not had the opportunity to play a ton. So, stepping into a Pistons team where obviously where they're at, there is an opportunity for him to step in and play minutes. I know there were some reports, I think some people were circulating that had talked about he's going to start. I think the actual legitimate reports were that he has the opportunity to start at some point this season. So I wouldn't get too excited. Jalen Duren's 100 times better at this point in their career. So, I mean, if you're worried about, him stepping in and being able to claim that starting center role or play massive minutes off the bat, I don't think that'll happen. I think it'll just be more consistent rotational minutes if the move does come to fruition and come through. There's a very real possibility that this doesn't actually happen, and this is something that he gets moved in the offseason and falls into the same trap. So I wouldn't freak out too much about Wiseman. Even if he is moved, I don't think he's necessarily a 100% fab guy, the top pick on a great opportunity. Give him 30 minutes, he's going to be crazy. But his permanent stats were pretty decent. He just wasn't able to find a role to play starter rotational minutes for that Warriors team. All right, let us know if we missed any big winners from the trade deadline. Honestly, I know I talked about saving waiver claims for trade deadlines. I'm happy I did that in some of my leagues, able to pick up some of these guys who, were able to be opened up to pretty strong situations. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you in the next one.